The German real estate developer and multimillionaire Christoph Gröner has an appointment with the Düsseldorf city mayor. Gröner meets frequently with local politicians, because they're the ones who award building contracts. And local politicians meet frequently with people like Christoph Gröner. Sometimes the real estate tycoon has 4 meetings like this in a day. How much influence do the super-rich wield? We sought to answer that question by looking at Gröner and many others in Germany. At first glance, it seems to be a wealthy, powerful country brimming with opportunities. But on closer examination, Germany is among those industrialized countries with the widest gap between rich and poor. Success is often dependent on social background. Why is economic mobility so low in Germany? Is social inequality threatening social cohesion? To find answers, we traveled the world. We spoke to a Nobel laureate and other leading researchers, all experts on the dynamics of inequality.
The world is at a crossroads today.
People sense that the control of their nation is being stolen from them.
Inequality is the most pressing social problem facing us today.
Welcome to the land of inequality. Christoph Gröner has 4 children and multiple millions. For 6 months, he let our cameras follow him at public appearances.
We're the ones with opportunity, time, and money. We have to get involved. We are the state, and ours is one of the best nations in the world.
And behind the scenes of his business, one of Germany's biggest construction companies.
These were all derelict, all trash.
He got rich with real estate and worked his way to the top.
There's no better society than ours here in Germany. We have a new seating plan. Let's go. Mr. Greichen here on the right, you there, that's great.
He's a leading property market investor, generating millions of square meters of living space. Does his wealth lend him power? Christoph Gröner on his way to another meeting. Today, he wants to personally ensure that a project to construct a new neighborhood doesn't get bogged down in red tape.
It's a bit scary when you realize how easily you achieve your goals. That correlation, as I think I become. I have a vision of what I want to achieve, and bang, it works. And when you go a step further, and that works too, it's powerful. You learn to be tough as you pursue your goals, or rather your company's goals.
Here in Cologne, Christoph Gröner has acquired half of an entire street in the district of Mülheim. He plans to build a new neighborhood called Cologne to the tune of 350 million euros. Today, he and his Cologne team are discussing the pending building permit. Gröner thinks things are moving too slowly.
Mr. Hoffmann is on top of the project and will be submitting a building application in November.
But starting construction July 1st is a bit late, isn't it?
Processing the application generally takes 12 months.
I'd still try to speed things up.
We are wherever we can, but the city has said clearly they need to prioritize tasks because they're understaffed.
That's not good enough. Then we'll have to meet the mayor. I want that permit by spring. I want it March 30th. We break ground April 1st. I want to move in 18 months later.
Experience has shown.
In this case, I'm not bothered by experience.
Gröner's Cologne project illustrates a common dilemma. Companies want to build apartments that maximize profits. Tenants want apartments they can afford. The city government has invited residents of Cologne to a local gym for a meeting to discuss the future of their city and identify the issues that are important to them.
I can't afford 10 euros a square meter.
The evening's host is Cologne's Mayor Henriette Reker.
Where are we? Ostheim, Welchen, Hörnberg, Buchheim, Kalk. Here. We're here.
Guten Abend. Hallo. Herr Skani, guten Abend.
Here, too, conversation centers on the divide between rich and poor.
I understand your position, but we can't tell people where to live or when to move. Everyone has to decide that for themselves.
For many years, local governments sought to ensure the supply of affordable housing by building themselves. Then, a wave of privatization swept across Germany in the 1990s, and investors took over. But the city needs thousands of flats, which is why Mayor Reker needs Gröner.
A city has a duty to provide the space and building permits needed to ensure sustainability in the housing market. We haven't yet managed to attract enough investors.
How do you respond to investors who say either you let us have our way or we'll take our project elsewhere?
Investors do that, but they know I'm open to negotiation.
And what about Mr. Gröner and that building permit he's waiting for?
I meet Mr. Gröner several times a year, and we try to reach agreement and lay out the next steps.
Are you both satisfied now?
We're at least optimistic.
The meeting in the gym reveals that in the struggle against rising rents, many residents feel abandoned by politicians. Who decides today what the Germany of tomorrow will look like? Who really wields power in Germany? We asked residents in Duisburg and Leipzig. This is what members of the German parliament thought their answers would be.
Merkel?
Politicians?
I think people wouldn't say politicians because they know politicians don't hold any power.
I'm sure too few said that they're the ones who have power.
Big business?
The 1%.
Corporations.
I'm guessing they said corporations.
It should be the people, but it's capital.
The corporations. Not politicians. They're just figureheads.
The ones with the money.
Do you find these answers frustrating?
No, because it's true. They're right. But that's a problem for democracy.
It worries me.
I'd rather they believed that politicians could take the responsibility.
I think we need to do something to show that we're not running after the money, so to speak.
Near the Parliament building, the battle for power and influence also plays out on the real estate market. Florian Schmidt is on his way home. He's not looking forward to the evening ahead. Tonight, his own home is a rink for the round of the real estate power fight.
They look nice enough, the two coming to see the flat. Like stereotypical Anglophone hipsters from abroad.
The visitors are interested in buying the flat that Florian Schmidt rents.
So they'll come in and then?
They can look at the flat. It should be a brief affair.
It's a small apartment, only 60 square meters. The parents sleep on the pull-out in the living room. Their 7-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter sleep next door.
This is where the kids sleep. But my little desk is there, too.
Florian Schmidt moved in here when he was still a student. Now the flat is up for sale. The potential buyers have arrived.
You're from the real estate agency? Yes.
The agent arranged the appointment. His clients wish to remain anonymous. They're from abroad and want to invest in Berlin's property market. Florian Schmidt is a member of the Green Party and the councillor responsible for urban development, public space and facility management in his district, Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg. Mr. Schmidt, are you surprised that being a politician doesn't exempt you from the danger of being driven out of your rental?
No, not at all. And that wouldn't be good either. Being a politician shouldn't guarantee preferential treatment.
He holds no grudge against the prospective buyers. The problem lies elsewhere.
So I just want to make it clear to you, it's not against you, it's more against, not against you as well. It's more against the system. It's more about the conditions, what the German law...
I can tell you that from...
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
As a tenant, Schmidt knows he'll probably be the loser in this round. But as a politician, Schmidt has a different opponent, Christoph Gröner, who wants to build in his district. Many local residents oppose the plan.
Of course, I'm somewhat wary of such people because they produce a kind of urban environment that doesn't correspond to the type of environment we want to live in. We say that it would be best if buildings were owned by the people who live in them, and not by people looking to extract a profit from them. The same applies to new buildings. We want people who live in the buildings to own these buildings as co-ops. We're working for the people, while Mr. Gröner works for his shareholders.
Florian Schmidt dreams of a city where real estate is in the hands of housing cooperatives and small property owners. Gröner bought this former post office tower in Schmidt's district with the intention of installing hundreds of apartments. At the time of filming this report, he'd locked horns over the development with Schmidt, who believed voters and politicians should have a say. Gröner complained the district was delaying the building permit. He found a lucrative interim solution, though, by renting a few floors out as office space. On this day, he was using that space to host a New Year's event. His plans foresaw luxury apartments in the tower, with welfare housing relegated to adjacent buildings.
Nice to see you. He's become my secret weapon. Every day, each of the individuals standing up here go that extra mile. They sacrifice vacation time, get in trouble with their partners at home because they can't explain why, or because they're suspected of having joined a sect. So I'd like to say a big thank you to you, my colleagues. And now please return to the audience so that everyone can see me. Please, a round of applause.
Councillor Florian Schmidt was also invited to the reception.
I got a message from Florian Schmidt last night telling me he wouldn't be able to make it, mainly because of family reasons. Maybe another opportunity to meet can be arranged. I'm ready and willing. I'd be happy to have a chance to talk. Florian Schmidt is a representative of the people, sent by his political party. So basically, he's just a prisoner of his own circumstances, of his party and his district. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, but if I were, I'd do things differently.
This is the district Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg, Florian Schmidt's district.
I don't know where things stand. Mr. Gröner is meeting the Urban Planning Committee next week. So maybe that will be a good time.
Florian Schmidt was once an activist who attended demonstrations against big business and its representatives, people like Gröner. Today he uses his role in city government to steer development in an equitable direction. But he can't build the needed living space himself. The district has acquired a few buildings, but its budget is small. So he needs investors.
This is a gas station by the canal.
Today the department is discussing a different project.
Here we're talking about closing a gap with the hotel.
Okay, well, we need to put a big question mark behind that. Tearing down houses that people live in is just the kind of thing we don't want to be doing. So I'd ask you to not give any recommendations of how this could work. None at all. Okay?
Gröner and Schmidt plan to meet soon to discuss how to move forward with the formal postal office building. It's unclear how that conversation will go. Is wealth power?
We are absolutely at a crossroads right now in the 21st century, in this very year, given the socio-political forces that are operating on a global scale.
And of course, that leads into the political issue, political inequality that stems from wealth inequality. You hear a lot about how wealthy people seek to influence elections, and that is certainly a very real and serious problem, but it's much bigger than that.
Studies in the US have shown that the wealthy steer the direction of the country. If the rich elite has a policy objective, it very often gets what it wants. Whatever the elite doesn't favor is likely to fall through, even if it's backed by the lower income majority. Is the same true in Germany? Armin Schäfer is a political scientist who's investigated this question.
We were surprised to find that the situation in Germany is skewed in much the same way as described in the US study. Bundestag lawmakers have consistently geared their decisions to the interests of higher income earners and higher tier jobs, and the interests of people who earn less or belong to socially disadvantaged groups are systematically given less consideration.
What policies did this impact? The researchers conducted hundreds of surveys on topics ranging from the economy and environment to foreign affairs and finance. They grouped subjects into rich and poor and asked each to define their desired policy outcome. In what area was the divergence most noticeable?
Wealth tax is an obvious example. The higher an individual's income, the less likely they will be to support a reintroduction of the wealth tax, whereas lower income earners definitely want it back. To this day, we haven't seen the return of such a wealth tax.
We're winding up with a government of the 1%, for the 1%, and by the 1%.
At the football stadium in Leipzig, Christoph Gröner has rented a box where a single seat costs 10,000 euros per season. It's a place to cut business deals. The game is on. Gröner uses the time to network.
How are you?
I can't complain.
He's often scored goals himself up here, like recently with another major project that had hit a snag.
We bumped into the city finance minister and had a very polite but firm conversation with him. 2 weeks later, we met at his office and found a solution. That was for a 350 million euro investment. In the end, politicians know that it's here in these halls that they'll meet the decision makers from the business world. People who ultimately have a say in and are responsible for urban development. Right now, we still have more than $1 billion to place.
In the land of inequality, ordinary people sit in the bleachers. while the movers and shakers seal their deals in private boxes. Here in the stadium, Leipzig will end up losing this game. But the duel that counts for Christoph Gröner takes place at another venue, the Berlin district office of Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg. Gröner has an appointment with Councillor Schmidt. Closed-door talks have been going on for hours. Gröner wants his building permit. Schmidt wants voters to have a say.
We talked, and we don't have a deal yet, but we took a first step today. How do you see it?
You've pretty much summed it up.
The meeting is over, but Christoph Gröner and Florian Schmidt stay behind for a one-on-one. Cologne's carnival is the icebreaker. The businessman dons a costume in the annual parade. It brings back memories for the politician.
My mother would dress the whole family up as dying trees in the 80s.
Now it's time to cut to the chase.
My problems with Mr. Schmidt arise when he gets a building permit that he has to sign and he doesn't sign it. He just doesn't sign. I don't think that's okay. I think that's when he should have the guts to say, yes, I'm a politician and I'm in the Green Party. But right now, Mr. Gröner has a right to his building permit. So whether I like it or not, I'm going to sign.
I'd say there are at least two ways to see that. Other people would say I have guts precisely because I'm not signing the building permit. People feel frustrated. And I sort of do too, even though now I make a decent living. I live in a small apartment and am looking to move, and there's simply nothing on the market. Or if there is something, 100 people are waiting in line.
Hey, you'd be welcome to rent one of our flats.
We'll see. But I do feel that ultimately what's happening here is a struggle for power and attention, for you too.
I don't think we'll be assessed by how well we played our hand. At some point, someone is going to count apartments, and I'd like to be assessed on those merits.
Does money change people's behavior? It's a question social psychologist Paul Piff has been researching for years. For one of his experiments, he enlisted hundreds of people to play a rigged game of Monopoly.
What we did in this game of Monopoly was just manipulate with the flip of a coin whether some people were rich or other people were poor. We randomly assigned one person to be this rich player in this rigged game. So they got 2 times the money to play the game. They got to roll both dice instead of one to move around the board. And what we found is that across all of these different sessions, richer players made more noise as they moved around the board. They took up more space in the room with their bodies. We had a bowl of pretzels. The richer players took more pretzels.
I love pretzels.
And they're more likely to be talking to the other person with their mouths full. When we asked them to describe why they'd won, they were way less likely to talk about those external forces, those features of the environment, their luck, that random flip of a coin that had gotten them into that privileged position in the first place. And they were more likely, far more likely, to talk about what they did, their own skills, their own talents, their own successes, their own wherewithal, their own acumen, the decisions they made in the game.
The world as a board game. Christoph Gröner is flying to France for one of the most important events on his annual calendar, the real estate exhibition in Cannes.
I could cut to the front with my very self-important person pass, but I won't.
Tickets to the fair cost €2,000. There, investors pledge hundreds of billions of euros. Many politicians depend on businessmen like Gröner. Now he's about to meet the people he depends on. The property market takes place right next to the yacht harbour. Investors from all over the world attend. It's their money that decides which cities will get new buildings and revive districts, and when. Miniature models seeking big investors. The mayor of Cologne, Henriette Reker, is also here. The issue of the building permit for Christoph Gröner's Cologne is settled. He says he'll have it by the beginning of July. He's satisfied. In Cannes, Henriette Reker is meeting other investors, one every half hour.
MIPIM is the biggest property fair in the world. As a growing city, we rely on investors to build our properties. So we have to showcase ourselves. We have to show what Cologne has to offer.
Henriette Reker's Cologne pitch is directed at A-list investors, sovereign wealth fund managers and pension fund executives.
We also operate in Germany as well.
Christoph Gröner does not want his meetings at the fair to be filmed. Here in Cannes, it's evident that there's no longer such a thing as the economy. Today there's the real economy, where, for example, people build houses in which other people live. And then there's the financial economy, where property is just another asset to turn money into more money. The business journalist Hans-Jürgen Jakob spent years creating a who's who of the world's richest investors and found out who owns the world.
The world belongs to those who've mastered the art of using other people's money to turn a profit for themselves in the most efficient way possible.
This is how the asymmetrical ratio between the real and the financial economies has developed. In the early 70s, the two were still equal. But by 1990, that ratio stood at 2-to-1. In 2000, it was 3-to-1. In 2017, the world's financial assets amounted to approximately $300 trillion. The real economy is worth just $80 trillion, meaning the ratio is now almost 4-to-1. Like banks, asset managers have grown increasingly powerful. The biggest investment firm is BlackRock. BlackRock's holdings, for example, include 6% of Siemens shares, almost equal to the amount held by the Siemens family. In fact, BlackRock holds shares in every company listed on the German stock exchange and major global companies. In total, BlackRock has assets amounting to some $6 trillion, meaning it manages more capital than the combined state revenues of the US, Britain, and Germany. Something has shifted. If investors control more money than the world's wealthiest nations, they have power. Power that politicians can no longer rein in.
Es ist in gewisser Weise eine Kunstwelt.
To a certain extent, it's an artificial world. The people in New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles who control international finance capitalism have virtually no contact with the realities of a company or consumer market. They're juggling abstract, astronomically high figures and trying to meet abstract targets. That's the world they live in. And all's well in their world as long as the numbers look good.
It's evening in Cannes. Christoph Gröner is hosting a party in the yacht harbour. Gröner finances his multi-billion euro projects with bank loans, but he also needs investors' money.
A very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming tonight.
Now it's his turn to pitch.
When it comes to bidding, we're often at a disadvantage. Sometimes we don't land the contract for a really big project. Why? Because there are other parties with dubious intentions. They buy it, divide it up, and somehow make a few extra euros selling the pieces. And the result is a scattering of overpriced properties. What we need is fast financing. We need cheap money. And for that, I need you, esteemed bank managers and investors. I need your support. It concerns me that there are more and more parties who aren't interested in creating added value. They just want to do business. And there's nothing illegal about that per se, but they're stronger than we are.
Christoph Gröner has made millions in property development, but investors bankroll billions. He has to defend his decisions before politicians as well. The investors who control the money are virtually invisible. Tonight, not one agrees to an interview. It's a new world order. Back in Berlin.
So, liebe Freunde, schön euch zu sehen. Hey!
Christoph Gröner is jockeying to keep up with the global competition. He's just arrived from talks with an investor.
We were in London today and shook things up. We did very well with our partners. Sorry, I can't stop smiling. You know, it's always a tough game.
A game in which only a select few get a share of the prize.
People sense correctly that the control of their nation is being stolen from them. They sense this all over the world, and they're not wrong.
It's making people feel like they've been left behind, like they no longer belong, and they view the future with despair. We see it in the drop in party membership as well as in election results, and I think it's a very dangerous development.
Rents and property prices are rising. Salaries, for the most part, are not. There is a nagging suspicion that politicians are no longer the ones writing the rules. Opting out of the democratic system is one form of protest. Here in Leipzig and in Duisburg, residents were asked if they vote.
Kind of.
What does that mean?
It depends on the situation. I didn't vote last time because, honestly, the system is too corrupt.
My whole life I went to vote. I was even in a political party for 30 years. But in recent years, I've felt really let down by politicians.
Did you vote last time?
No.
Why not?
No time, unfortunately.
No, because nothing gets done, no matter who's up there.
Nothing gets done, says Alexandra Raspe, mother of baby Bela and an older daughter in school. Alexandra Raspe is a single mother. Together with her friend Markus Sorg, she shows us their Leipzig neighborhood of Grünau.
Grünau.
So it's nice here. It's...
Nah. I wouldn't say it's nice.
What's not nice here?
The prefabs aren't nice.
Yes, the prefabs define the neighborhood. I agree that's a con. So pros, cons, even? We do have quiet trams.
1 out of 3 residents here didn't vote in the 2017 general election, one of the lowest turnouts in Germany. The majority of those who did cast a ballot voted for the far-right AfD party. Alexandra, when was the last time you voted?
Na?
Ich bin gerade 18 geworden.
It was just after my 18th birthday. My older daughter had just been born. I was so proud to be allowed to vote for the first time, and I voted.
And in the last election?
No.
So you've completely stopped?
Yes.
How come?
Because there's no point.
More than anything, Alexandra Raspe wants her children to grow up to have a better life and more opportunities than she's had. She's trained as a geriatric nurse. Markus Sorg works in a large furniture store. They have differing political views.
Ordinary people are heard and seen, but the rich hold more sway over political parties.
And there are basically no rich single moms.
There are, they just have nannies.
Right.
But you still have faith in the political system.
I do believe that I can change something with my little vote. That's why I vote. If I thought there was no possibility of changing anything at all, I wouldn't go vote either.
What bugs me the most is the kindergarten and school situation. That there's no acknowledgement that it's harder for a single parent to have a proper job that feeds the family than it is for couples. And as long as those conditions for single moms don't change, I won't go vote.
But can democracy work if people don't participate?
I think there'll be a new order if people stop participating.
And what happens then? Instead of democracy, we'll have what? Dictatorship.
What can happen if too many people believe they and their elected representatives no longer have any power? Jascha Munk is from Munich and teaches political science at Harvard University. He studied the impact of inequality on democracy.
A lot has shifted in Germany. 20 years ago, only 16% of Germans favored having a strong leader who didn't bother with elections and parliament. That figure now stands at 33%.
Researchers asked younger and older generations across the world how important it is to them to be living in a country that is governed democratically. The results show that whether a person is from the US, Poland, the Netherlands or Spain, the younger they are, the less importance they attach to democracy. In Germany, 2/3 of people over 50 approve of democratic governance. Not even a third of subjects under 30 feel the same. This map illustrates the number of people who did not vote in Germany's last general election. The darker the red, the more non-voters. The second map shows how many people voted for the far-right AfD. The darker the blue, the more AfD voters. Two forms of protest.
For younger people, it's all very abstract. The idea that we could one day lose our democracy and end up with communism or fascism is unimaginable to them. So they're more willing to experiment. They think, okay, these people, Trump, the AfD, and even some in the far-left parties, sure, they're partially attacking things I actually support, but it can't get too bad. So let's see what they do.
In Germany, populists are seizing the moment and echoing voters' concerns. Like here in Görlitz in Saxony, where many are scared of losing their jobs. The AfD has organized this rally. The main political parties have stayed away.
It's infuriating when Siemens closes plants here and moves them to the Czech Republic. And we're sick of being a cheap labor region. How many of you work from morning till night and still can't make ends meet?
Recht und Freiheit sind des Glückes Unterfangen. Blühe im Glanze dieses Glückes, blühe deutsches Vaterland.
A lot of people are asking, what about us? Where are our fates being decided? Do we still have an identity, a home? Or are those decisions being made somewhere else entirely?
People are angry, and they're angry for good reason in a lot of European and North American countries. But their attention has been diverted to things that aren't really the source of their anger and frustration, and that's the dangerous part.
I think we have learned lessons from the past that we should not let this inequality go out of bounds where the only solution is really a destructive one.
Solutions are needed before populism lures voters with the false promise of a quick fix. But who can offer such solutions? Would it help to raffle off a few seats in the German parliament among ordinary citizens? Should cities be building affordable housing without the help of investors? Should wealth be taxed after all? Christoph Gröner wants to continue pulling the strings that shape Germany's future, maybe even more openly than he is today. Do you feel powerful?
Yes.
Who's more powerful, you or politicians?
I guess business managers are more powerful. We're more powerful because we're independent. I'd like to enter politics someday.
Do you already have a plan for that?
I'm founding a party right now.
Really?
Yes, I think we'll soon reach a point when it'll be important for actors currently working behind the scenes to step out onto the stage.